Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Welcome to Universal Pathways. This is a show brought to viewers worldwide right here on Saturdays from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Millennium News 24. Viewers can download the Millennium TV app on their iPhone, Google Play Store, from all Android devices. You can also watch us live on Roku, Apple TV, LG Smart TV, Sony Smart TV, Blu-ray, Amazon Fire TV, Samsung Smart TV, Horizon Satellite, Beyond Boundaries, or go to our website at www.millenniumtv24.com. Today, I have with me in the studio Cary Edwards, who's here today to share with us and our viewers his perspective on life and also why he's running for the political office of being the next president for Brooklyn, New York. Just a brief intro. Cary Edwards is a Brooklyn-born community advocate, Democratic candidate for Brooklyn Borough President in 2025 election this year. We do hope you will be there to give him your vote. He previously ran for the position in 2021 and is now seeking a rematch against his incumbent, Antonio Reynoso. With over 25 years of experience in public service, Mr. Edwards has significantly held roles including Vice President of External Affairs at Brookdale Hospital and Head of Corporate Responsibility at Air Wellness, a cannabis company. At Brookdale, he was instrumental during the COVID-19 pandemic, advocating for equitable healthcare access in underserved communities. At Air Wellness, he led the Change in Legacy program, which successfully expunged hundreds of nonviolent criminal records, offering individuals a second chance. Edwards is also deeply involved in community initiatives. He founded the It Starts Here program, connecting students with gun violence survivors to foster healing and understanding. Additionally, he serves as the president of the Make-A-Wish Brooklyn Community Council, working to fulfill life-changing wishes for children with critical illnesses. His campaign focused on addressing systematic issues in Brooklyn, including affordable housing, healthcare, childcare, education, and food insecurities. Edwards emphasizes the need for equitable distribution of resources across all neighborhoods, aiming to ensure that communities like Brownsville, East New York, receiving the same level of investment and attention as others. Again, I'm Curtis Douglas Ill, your host here at Universal Pathway, and I welcome you, Mr. Cary Edwards.
Thank you for having me.
How you doing, my brother?
I'm good. Tired, but I'm good.
I hear you. I'm sure it's busy campaigning, and it's great to know that you're actually out there on the, just making a trail.
Yes.
But please, I know I did my best in trying to introduce you to our audience here, but again, just introduce yourself and anything that I might have missed to our audience.
You said a lot in that I've lived in the borough of Brooklyn half a century plus one. You guys could do the math. 27 years of that, to your point, actually 27 years I spent in public service, government service, not-for-profits, healthcare. I'm a proud child of immigrant parents. My dad's from Guyana, my mother's from Trinidad. She passed. She was from Trinidad. I'm a father of three amazing children and a husband. My oldest son just graduated Brandeis University. I'm in African American studies and sociology. But I'm really here for three reasons. I'm running for borough president because the borough is lacking equity, which you spoke about, inclusion, and engagement. I feel that, once you are a borough president, you are a president of all. A representative of all. And there's so many communities, not only just in Brownsville, East New York, but Coney Island, our Muslim communities, our Asian communities have just not seen the current borough president who's found it fit to serve just, what he believes is the voting bloc. Mm-hmm. And really my encouragement here today is not only to just let people know who I am, but to understand that if they do vote, especially in these local elections,
Yes.
that every vote counts, or
Wow.
that we hope every vote counts.
Indeed.
And so I could win by 1 vote, I could win by 30 votes.
Mhm.
But that means, we have to have people to come out, research, understand where they are lacking. Government is supposed to be a supportive piece for people, a supportive place. So when we talk about housing and healthcare, education, the borough president has a $45 million a year capital budget.
Wow.
Yes. And I mean, because you're talking about Brooklyn being the 4th largest city in America,
Mhm.
it's basically, that's the money that we get from just the borough president's side to plug holes, to talk about healthcare. I worked at a healthcare at Brookdale Hospital. We're one of 10 safety net hospitals. Those are hospitals that are $150 million in deficit because we take care of the uninsurable or the underinsured. When you talk about Medicaid, Medicare. And so using that $45 million a year, we can plug holes. We can give $500,000. Well, my plan is to give $500,000 a year to each one of those hospitals for new equipment. I tell a story. A young lady came into our hospital when I first got there, did an MRI, ended up having a growth on her kidney.
Mm-hmm.
Now she's planning for, oncology and cancer treatment.
Wow.
Our MRI was 27 years old. She got a false positive. That's when you don't invest in community. Invest in those, what we call impacted communities.
Mm-hmm.
We have 250,000 people that go to bed hungry at night. Only 152 valid food pantries. So when you see hundreds of people, working class people, standing online for food, it's not just about the groceries that Donald Trump talked about you couldn't afford. It's about access to that food.
Mm-hmm.
And then when 3 o'clock comes and they take that food, they have to either throw it away or do something with it. So I want to invest in food pantries throughout the borough, giving folks a chance to have refrigeration, keep food, use a lot of the farms. People may not know Kingsborough Community College has one of the largest farms in New York City. And that's fresh food. How do we transfer that food?
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully some people go pick it up, but if we can now pay for it. So let me back up. Capital expenditures are tangible things.
Yes.
Tables, vehicles, fridges.
That's right.
We can invest in that at a high rate. And that for me, that saves my people. Not only my black people, but my Asian people, the folks who are struggling every day to get by. My Muslim community who does a lot of great work on Coney Island Avenue, bringing in this food, feeding their community, because we're the ones who seem to get left out. We're not the ones who get the apartments and all those things.
Yes. In hearing you speak, there's something that keeps coming back, because thank you for all the data, because even as you speak, I'm being educated. There's a disparity that I see in our community where we're just not truly educated as to what resources are available to us. So many times politicians get elected, and even though ones might suggest a certain solution to close these disparity, but it comes back to just knowing what's available.
Yes.
So what would you say are those portals that's needed to help our people to be educated, to know the difference of what a politician ought to be doing in the community, truly educated? Because whether it be those churches, those masjid, those temples, all these various different leaders, etc., and the various different pockets where our people go constantly to listen to what they deem the word, listen to their community leaders. But like you said, 45 million?
45 million.
So 45 million as a budget. Who and where are those? Who are those leaders? And where are those portals that a future bar president such as yourself can now have access to educate the community for the next 4 years, to now know that these resources that you're suggesting are available?
So we have to start from the beginning, right? I won't say it's a purposeful thing, but we've removed civics and understanding in our schools.
Okay.
So, you go and you do a career day at a school.
Okay.
And you're like, well, I'm a community advocate. They don't want to hear you. They want to see the doctors. They want to see the lawyers, because it gives them something that they feel that they can identify with.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to bring back civics to our schools, right?
Okay.
We have to talk about being obsessed with constituent services. One of the things that we've been doing even before being elected is we go around and we hand out palm cards to folks and say, you know, you can get childcare if you're making under $75,000, or you can get help with your rent assistance. That takes a lot of energy from me just as a non-elected. Yes. So what I want to do in the office is build those community conversations.
Okay.
Right? Go into the community boards, go into the churches and say, put on your bulletin board, you know what? This is where you can go find fresh food. Because a lot of times the information is really built into just having the conversation. And I tell folks, you know, I'm married and my wife had an argument with me last night, but we talked it out.
Yeah.
Right. And communication is the best way to do that. And what I feel elected officials aren't doing, they get caught up in the job of what they say serving.
Yes. But
they're not serving that information. They're not saying to, you know what, this is what we're supposed to do. And so that's going to be the difference with my office. Like, we are going to be in community board offices doing constituent hours so that if you're an elder, you don't have to turn around and say, you know, I got to take my Access-A-Ride or the train to Borough Hall, which sits in central Brooklyn. There are community board offices all throughout. You're going to see me there once a month with my team to do constituent services so that you know that, hey, this is available to you. You know, we've been fighting on Con Ed. Con Ed is about to raise people's, you know, electric bill 9%. What does that mean for our seniors?
Wow.
What does it mean for the folks, those union workers who are only making $30,000, $40,000 a year? You know, in the law of the Free Housing Act, right? You're supposed to only pay 30% of your income for room and board. Now some people paying 60, 70%. So now you definitely can't afford the groceries, even if you had the money. You definitely can't afford the lights if they're on. And so I feel like there's a way that we're moving our folks out of community. And when I say our folks, the folks that don't have the fork in their tongue, the immigrants, right? The folks who came to do a better life, but now are under attack. And I think that's where, you know, I want to hold the line a little bit. I want to be able to get our folks in there. But the fear is that they're thinking only 20% of Black and brown, Asian, Muslims are going to come out and vote in this election because they're tired with the establishment. And then not what that mean for me is I may not win. I may not win unless I can get 30, 40% of our folks to come out to vote, to want to see difference, because then what will happen, we'll hide in the corners, we'll complain, but not knowing that we have the power to actually make a difference by showing up. And they don't want us to show up. They really don't want us to show up because if things change, right? We have this progressive, moderate, conservative, all of these titles that are based off of, you know, political needs. The Progressive Party, they say they look like us, but they say they want what us, but they don't. I don't feel they do. So no offense to any Progressive.
Wow. It's interesting as you're speaking. I'm reminded of a conversation. I think it was in April of 1964. It was Malcolm X, seeing similar concerns in the community, right? Just really want to address the issues that surround our people. And the headline that he really spoke on was the ballot or the bullet. And it's just profound just to see your connection to it all, where you're now saying our people need to really get out and vote, you know, to really make a difference. If not, we're just going to keep becoming more marginalized and pushed back, where our voice is becoming smaller and smaller. So even though some might identify as the various different terms that he mentioned, those same people in those communities right now need to show up and vote. Because the difference that I saw in that, you're saying, he said the ballot or the bullet, but profoundly enough, what you've done, you've allowed survivors, right? Connecting student with gun violence survivors to foster healing and understanding. We have a candidate who's fostering healing. So it doesn't have to be a bullet. You don't have to be George Floyd. You don't have to be Trayvon Martin. You don't have to be those statistics. And any ones who identify, like he said, with the hue that's been called brown, dark, melanated, indigenous people need to really come out to those polls. Literally gather the block and come out in those ballots, because one such as yourself with the kind of understanding, really bringing forth that healing, truly looking to make a difference.
Yeah, and it's really just about listening. You know, the story I tell folks. So you know, my mom, you know, was murdered in July 2022. But she started me. I make the joke. She started me on this pathway.
Wow.
The first job that she got me into, I was working for Jamaican.
Okay.
Assemblyman Nick Perry, who was Ambassador Nick Perry under the Biden administration. My first day in that job, the phone was ringing. And he was very particular about, if you do not know the script, do not answer the phone. But the phone was ringing. I picked up the phone, and on the other side, there was a woman named Miss Graham. She lived on Clarendon Road. You never forget your first constituent service. And Con Edison had shut her lights off.
Wow.
And she was yelling and screaming. She needed help. She needed help. And I panicked. I didn't know what to do. I told her I'll call her right back.
Mm-hmm.
So I called Con Edison, and that's when that moment kicked in. I said, this is a lady, senior, cut her lights off. She doesn't know why, hasn't seen the bill, and I'm advocating. 3-4 minutes back and forth, 5 minutes back and forth. They were like, tell the assemblyman we appreciate his advocacy. We're going to put our lights back on and figure out what the problem is.
Wow.
And I stopped, and I was like, wow, this is what public service is supposed to be.
Wow.
And so for me, it has been a life of answering those phone calls. And I'm not going to save everyone, but I'm going to try. And if we can get to a point where everyone feels that they have they're included in the process, they're engaged in the process, then we won't see this issue of folks feeling left behind, because they know that there is that reality for them. There is something that, a bullet can shoot and change the direction quickly.
Yes. But
as well as that vote can change that, you know. So when people say, yeah, you know what, I don't like that person, I'm gonna vote them out. You're watching how the world is against Eric Adams and the world is against Andrew Cuomo, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you go to vote, these folks won't be in. But if you go to vote, you also have that power to change your existence. And my fear is, like, if this is not for me, if I do not win, it's because that we don't feel that we had a right and a power into voting. And that's the power of it.
Wow. At this moment, we're going to go to a brief commercial. Do stay right here with us as we go to this commercial for a minute. I'm here in the studio with Mr. Cary Edwards, future Brooklyn Bar President.
Hello viewers, you are watching Millennium News 24. America and global villages seen America independence built by immigrants, manufacturers, roads, highways, educations, healthcare, IT, scientists, space, business development to all thousands of multimedia and all major social media platforms and news network in America. Millennium News 24, one of truthfully news networks in America and global news organizations. Please watch, follow and subscribe. We are in iOS and Android devices, Roku, Amazon, Apple devices, all smart TV, globally Horizon satellite, social media Millennium News 24, Millennium TV 24. Website www.millenniumnews24.com and www.millenniumtv24.com. Thank you.
We're about to come back. Is the other candidate married?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
All right. Welcome back to Universal Pathways. I'm your host, Curtis Douglas Ill, and today I'm in the studio with a current candidate for the presidency of Brooklyn, the Brooklyn Bar President. We have Mr. Cary Edwards. It's truly an honor to really be here in the studio speaking with him. And one of the things that really stood out to me prior to us going to this commercial is the fact that he spoke about communication, that he and his wife might have differences, but when it's all is said and done, he speak with her, and before you know it, they're again at peace. My brother, that is so significant. It's a very honorable, admirable quality
Thank you.
to be a family man.
Yeah.
I see your deep connection as well, that your mother really, your parents prepared you well for what it is that you're doing. You've always been around service and just service to humanity. You know, you mentioned just the whole aspect that you want to uplift your community. And we share that in common because even as Moorish Americans, we emphasize the upliftment of fallen humanity. Humanity being the woman, truth be told.
Yeah.
So when you mention just communication with your wife, it speaks volume about you as a man.
Thank you.
And that's very honorable to know that you lead your family in such a, you know, admirable and dignified manner. So the community is an extension of the nucleus, which is the family. You know, it is said that from one man and woman, all have come forth. So to be able to be focused on the family and take care of your household, the borough itself become a microcosm, right? An aspect of these 5 boroughs, right? So now you gave a portion, $45 million, and just your willingness to be accountable to that. How are some of the areas in which just the values that you grew up in that make you stand apart from the different candidates that's now either in the office or ones looking to run? Not just you being on the Democratic ticket per se, but your values growing up.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think we all start out with the same values. I think it's the delivery of those values, right?
Okay.
It's the sacrifice of those values. You know, people say, you know, once you win, you're going to go from having 3 children to 2.7 million children.
Oh, wow.
And how are you going to
so true.
manage that, you know? And I think that, you know, that's the cross, you know, and if you're looking at it from a spiritual Christian side, that's the cross you bear, right? Because that is what my purpose is on this earth, right?
Okay.
And where some people will be doctors and some people will be priests or whatever, that my spiritual calling is to serve.
Okay.
And there will be sacrifices in that, right? You know, my wife is like, you know, you're not going to be coming home before 10 o'clock most every night and getting up at 6. And right now I'm still annoying her doing that. But when you see that you're able to help, there's something that I can't even express. Like I can't even express this what I feel is a spiritual gratitude to that. And then there's also that thing where you see people suffering and it doesn't sit well with you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're talking about the tax lien issue, and there's so many people who could lose their home to these tax liens. You know, and they extended it to June 2nd, and most people probably don't have the amount of money to get those things going. But there was one lady in particular that came to a fundraiser, never met her before, and she came, she's like, I just needed you to talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
And we had this conversation, and my ex was there, and my ex works for the city, and she was like, you know what, I'll connect her.
Wow.
And then she connected her, and then someone connected her, and then she called me. She's like, that $10,000 water bill that I had, they reduced it to $3,000.
Wow.
And I was like, and she was like, anywhere you go, whatever you need from me, you've done a lot for me. You sat there and listened. I don't promise things, but that when I say that level of communication, most of us as human beings just want a moment to feel that we're heard.
That's right.
And so when I talk about being obsessed with constituent services, like I want to make sure I have a hotline. I want to make sure that people can email. I want to make sure that we respond in real time to people, even if we can't help, because that is, for me, the quintessential reality of connection, of community, to be able to be heard. And then that builds family, right? You know, we see each other 3 more times, and now we're cousins. We're not even just friends. And I think that is the reality. But, you know, there will be sacrifice in that. But I think that is what my purpose on this planet is. And so it's something that I am comfortable with doing, something I've always been comfortable with doing, just showing up for folks and trying to go above and beyond. And I think, you know, there are different type of elected officials, right? You have folks who write policies that support and give people hope. And so, you know, your city council members and your state assembly, that they sit there and they write policies and laws and look at these kind of things, and they've done amazing things. The borough president is a very interactive position, which, you know, I love policy. I have a lot of great policy, but I want to be in the neighborhoods. I want to be helping someone take a cat out of a tree and turning their lights back on. And that's the beautiful part of that particular office. And you do it so wide, 2.7 million people. You're in North Brooklyn, South Brooklyn, you name it. And if we're able to do that effectively, given first 4 years, 8 years, I think I'm gonna make a real significant difference in people's lives.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask you a question to kind of go back 4 years, to go 4 years as well. What was it in 2021 that motivated you then to run? And what would you be doing differently now in 2025? That's going to really propel you and your initiative into for the next 4 years, making a difference in Brooklyn.
Yeah. The motivation for me was the hospital in which I worked.
Okay.
Here you have union members, 1199 members who get up every day, take care of their family, go to work. And some of them are sleeping in their cars.
Wow.
Some of them have pensions, working 20 years, and don't have enough money for these things. And then you start to see the disparity of community, right?
Yes.
Of what would be seen as impacted community. We were part of a task force that said that people that lived in East South Brooklyn were going to live 6 years less than people in North Brooklyn. And that's a heavy thing, because, I'm a type 1 diabetic.
Wow.
And I had a great job. I had commercial insurance, and I was still struggling health-wise. You have people that don't even have that. Black communities have the highest, bad health outcomes around, lead, heart disease, you name it. And so working in a hospital that served 1.3 million people in a demographic. So the majority of Brooklyn is in Central and South Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm.
You're saying to yourself, you got people living in their cars, people getting evicted, people having nowhere to go. And then COVID happened.
Mm-hmm.
And then you started to see 25 people dying in an evening, and I've not seen death like I've seen in COVID, and so my hospital was, on a string, but the elected officials, like everybody we're fine, but we weren't. Mm-hmm. And so I let CNN into the hospital to show the world we weren't.
Wow.
And they threatened my job. I could have lost it. We had 2 trailers. I got sick with COVID myself when I came back, thank God. But when I came back, there was 3 trailers and they were our people. Mm-hmm. And so you say to yourself, I had to do something crazy like that, even though I had the number of all of these elected officials. And within all these elected officials, it becomes a place where you're trying to serve. And I said, you know what? I need to run. Because if I run,
I see what you're saying.
the phone call comes directly to me.
Yes.
Or someone who is like-minded like myself.
Yes.
I don't have to then call this senator and hope that this senator feels that this is important, and not saying that they didn't, but the levels that folks have to go through to get support, it was like, I need to run for a seat that when somebody has a problem and I pick up the phone call and I'm like, this is the borough president, they're going to be like, okay, Mr. Borough President, let's get this done for folks. Versus, oh, my name's Carrie Edwards, I'm calling to hopefully this senator makes that phone call. Our people look at celebrity and politicians a certain way, and the response is quicker for them. And so that's the only point of it, to say, how could we help more people? Because I've helped a lot of people.
Yes.
But how could we help more people by having that honorable or that title behind my name that someone on the other side is going to pick up like that?
I hear you loud and clear. So I see clear your motivation, again, are those principles. So similar to how you're utilizing the principles through your communication with your wife.
Yeah.
Someone communicated principles to you that there shouldn't be all this disparity where people are not being served. Like you said, that phone call came in and you made sure that that person was heard.
Yeah.
So service has always been a part of your repertoire.
Yes.
Those who work in the hospital, it's really all about service
Sure.
and really making a difference. Like you said, you allow those not to come in and sit. So if I'm hearing you correctly, you are looking to have an administration that's more transparent,
Yeah.
where you're accountable to the people,
Yeah.
and truly making a difference, where there's not the haves and the have-nots, and that 45 million can be dispersed more equitable. And it just seemed as if 4 years come, 4 years go, and that is not the case.
Yeah, and that's really what's happening, because you have, first thing is showing up, and this brother has not shown up, right? He's decided, I had a conversation with the mayor, the current mayor, and he was just like, this guy's running the borough as though it's a district, and
Wow.
staying in communities that is comfortable. And, if you really want all to rise together, you have to be equitable in your disbursement of resources. You have to engage people. Folks ask me, well, why did you run? Why are you running now? And I was like, listen, we did a little internal poll, and I have more name recognition than the current borough president. He doesn't show up where he's needed the most. And maybe he doesn't think he needs to, but again, you're the borough. If you're District 41 or District 35, yeah, you have to placate to your community there.
Yes.
But when you're the borough president, your point is to be in all of those rooms, at all those meetings, no matter how frustrating or how long. The boss, you walk in there, they'll let you speak first, you listen, you out. You don't even have to sit there like me. I have to sit through the whole thing, right? Because I got to let folks know I care.
Yes.
But if you show up, people know who you are. People know that they can call on you, that you're constituent based and constituent, to our point about communication. When you are a good elected official, your constituent services is your front door.
Wow.
That's what makes and breaks an elected official, not how well they speak. I'm terrible with speeches, but I tell you something, you got a problem, we're going to solve it. And you're going to remember that. And so then constituent services is really what it's about when you're an elected official, because you're serving a need. And so, these are the things that I'm like, you got a privilege to be in that position, that seat. You have a privilege to serve people in ways that people could only thank you for on their dying day. And you're not doing that. It's become a job for some folks. And that just doesn't sit well with me.
You know what? Great points. You speak about your access and just meeting the need of the elderlies and just, closing that disparity. But I also want you to speak a little bit about the Make-A-Wish Foundation and dealing with those children. Yeah. You seem to have had an impact in the community as well. Can you speak a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's God brings me messages. And so I'm sitting in my office at Brookdale Hospital, and this woman named Erica Sandoval comes in, and she's like, look, she is the community coordinator for Make-A-Wish. And the way Make-A-Wish works is our referrals.
Yes.
And so she's like, we're not getting enough referrals from, East and Central Brooklyn. Understandably why, everybody sees Make-A-Wish on ESPN or something. It's like,
Yes.
Wow, it's not for me. And then we don't have enough wish granters.
Mm-hmm.
Because what happens in terms of information for us as a people, it tends to stop at a certain point, right? That's not really for me.
Okay.
Because we don't see the examples of
That's
it.
right.
And so at that point, we had almost 600 folks who were on the list for wishes, but we didn't have enough wish granters. We had like 20 something wish granters. So I went into my network and I basically rang the alarm. These are Black and brown kids. These are kids that, could use the same support as the folks you see on ESPN. I called friends, family, coworkers, and we started to get them in the training. And all of a sudden now we had 280 wish granters for these 600 kids. And my wife and I are doing 2 wishes. My secretary is doing 2 wishes. And now all of a sudden we were able to grant wishes for kids. And the interesting part about it, right? You can be something, do something, go somewhere, do a shopping spree.
Yes.
And so that level, they were like, you'll be the Brooklyn Council president. of it. And, you know, we started to connect them with like celebrities and stuff. But one of the things that I got in trouble for, but playfully, was like if I go into a room and I say, you know, well, what would you like? Mm-hmm. And these are kids from the inner city. Some kids, like, they were just worried about eating. Wow. Right? But they had these illnesses. That's like right. Me, like as a kid. And, you know, a kid was like, oh, well, I just want to do a shopping spree. Mm-hmm. Okay. I said, but you know, you could go to Disneyland. So I wasn't supposed to do that. Yeah. Because another thing, again, for a lot of our community, we stay in these silos. Yes. We don't see what the world could be. That's right. And the world could be leaving, you know, Far Rockaway, just going to Manhattan. That's right. And so I was like, no, you know, yeah, don't worry about it, but you can go. You can go. I can go to Disneyland? Yeah. Wow. And we'll write that down, right? Because this is the thing, again, it comes back to information, it comes back to communication. That's right. And this, to this date, is still one of my most proudest achievements, because we had children that look like us that would have never gotten a chance to live out something where they're still dealing with, you know, this one young man who was 16 years old, like, they're barely holding on to rent. He just wanted to go shopping. I told him he didn't want to go to Disney. He wanted to go shopping, take his mother shopping, $1,500 shopping spree. The limo pulled up. Couldn't beat it, man. Wow. And so they do a lot of great work. And so it was just been a pleasure been working with them for this long.
Wow. Again, just want to speak to our audience a little bit. We have here today in the studio Mr. Cary Edwards. He's the, running for the Brooklyn Borough Presidency. It is our hope that our listening audience, especially those in the Brooklyn community who should go out and vote for him in the various different community that he named specifically. We're speaking about somebody who not only intuitively is connected to his community, but he truly listens to the adults. He's been involved in various different community ventures throughout his life, seated by his mother. Once we come back from this break, I definitely want him to kind of speak, because he, to me, is a second generation of somebody who truly is embedded in the Brooklyn community, looking to serve his community. And we ought to not ignore pillars such as Mr. Edwards and his family, because he has a wealth of knowledge and insight to the point where he's now broadened the trajectory and the vision of our people. He's now giving them better references because he himself has been exposed. His mother exposed him to a lot. Not only did she expose him, but he's willing to continue that for himself, his community, and those beyond. He's also seeing beyond just himself. He wants to make sure that whatever amount of finance that he receives is dispersed to everyone on an equitable manner, and not just a certain pocket. Another 4 years go by, and the very people who need to be served are not served. So with that, we're going to go to another commercial. And just hold on 1 minute and come on back and build with us right here at Universal Pathway. As we go to this commercial break, we'll be right here.
Welcome to Millennium News 24, your trusted source for accurate, unbiased news. We're here to bring you the stories that matter most from America and around the world, with integrity and a commitment to truth. In today's world, where misinformation can easily spread, having access to reliable news is more important than ever. At Millennium News 24, we aim to cut through the noise by delivering clear, fact-based reporting. Whether you're following major events or looking for in-depth analysis, we are here to serve you with transparency and respect for all communities regardless of color, wealth, or religion. This beautiful America was built by the resilience of its people, immigrants, entrepreneurs, doctors, and everyday individuals working together to create something great. It's this spirit that inspires us to provide you with news that's inclusive, honest, and relevant. We believe that informed citizens are the foundation of a strong society, and we strive to give you the knowledge you need to make a difference. From breaking news to insightful features, we bring you comprehensive coverage on politics, economics, health, culture, and much more. We believe that everyone deserves access to the truth, and we are proud to be a part of a global network that connects people through information. Stay informed by following us on your devices, including iOS, Android, Roku, Amazon, Apple TV, and Smart TVS. And for global access, we're also available on Horizon Satellite. Visit us at www.millenniumtv24.com or www.millenniumnews24.com to stay updated at Millennium News 24. Our mission is to promote unity, understanding, and progress in a rapidly changing world. Join us as we work to inspire positive action through the power of truth. Thank you for watching. Follow us, subscribe, and stay informed.
So I'm gonna go until he gives us the knock, but at least we've done 2 commercials, so we're good. So we're gonna go in and come right back. Welcome back to Universal Pathways. I'm your host, Curtis Douglas Ill. Today I'm in the studio with the next, to me, in my mind, the next Brooklyn Borough President, Mr. Cary Edwards. It is our hope through this interview, and I'm sure he'll continue to meet with others as well, to make sure that he gets the support that on June 24th, that on June 24th, ones get out there and truly represent just the kind of support that is needed. We're speaking about somebody who leads from the heart, prepared by a strong mother who was very significant in the community in Brooklyn as well, and just people who truly love their community and love their country, love their borough, and truly want to make sure that ones have what they need. He witnessed a lot growing up in Brooklyn, and I wanted to speak to that a little bit. Who are some of those people that you saw coming in and out of your home, for instance, that you got exposed to? Because you have a lot of connection, and I saw where you were able to use your connection to make sure others who were not as connected get connected, so they can now get a better world view or community view and expand. So you're not just using the resources that you have for yourself. You truly want to share your knowledge and insight to others so they can benefit. But speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, so I have probably 2 of the most opposite but similar parents. My dad is a very quiet giver from Guyana. Someone calls him, you drop everything he's doing and do it for you. But my mom was a very big giver, a very loud, boisterous giver. And so her thing, she was about business. She migrated here from Trinidad, worked in the Mayor Lindsay administration, did something called Model Cities, but helped tremendous amount of people get jobs and get through schools, some elected officials. She got into college. And then as a child, our home every Saturday was like this meeting point. It's kind of like one of those old movies where you see everybody come to the basement and you're meeting, but you had so many different people walking in. And as a child, you just open the door.
Yes.
Open the door, make sure they're comfortable. And as you started to get older, my dad, he didn't want to go out. No, I don't want to do that. So then I became my mom's date. Come with me to this event. Wow. So I met Harry Belafonte. I met Shirley Chisholm. I met, Jesse Jackson, you name it. We would I was like, but as a child, and we didn't have cell phones back then, I was getting my little autograph. Right. And then I started to see my mom do work around minority contracting. Mm-hmm. And she was always like, I want to make sure that our people are good. And so when I'm thinking mostly Black, Caribbean, but she was like, everyone who feels marginalized. And I didn't understand that as a child. And so she led the charge of work in MWB, which is Minority Women Business Enterprises, to make sure that, Black people, minorities, women got a fair chance in construction, because obviously you see construction is $1 billion industry and a lot of Black people being left out. Mm-hmm. And so she's championing that, and she's still all but 5'2", but you get it in people's faces. And then I started seeing all these elected officials, and she's giving her money to these elected officials, and she's making sure this project works for this person.
Wow.
And then she started just hiring, and you started to see it, and you started to understand it. And during the break, we were just talking about, I couldn't appreciate it at the time because I just wanted my mom around. And interestingly enough, her murder came about because of the same thing that she did. She hired a young man to do painting, and he took advantage of the fact that she was getting older, and I wasn't working in the state, and my sister lived in Long Island, and he started selling drugs out of her home, and then she found out, and then he killed her. Wow. But she gave him the chance that she gave for so many, right? And she always say, our young Black men, we got to take care of them. You're my son, and you got a good life, but there's folks that got bills to pay and child support. And so she made sure that she hired specifically Black and Latino men to make sure that they could provide for their family. And so a lot of the things that I unconsciously do now, I start to see that there's similarities to that. And so, yeah, she's been my rock, and she's been the inspiration. But like I said, growing up, you don't see it. You're just like, okay, she's bringing you around. Oh, she missed the birthday. I played football. She came to one game.
Wow.
Right? Because she's always fighting a good fight and not realizing it. And it's funny because there's a great guy, Roy Hastic, that started the Caribbean Chamber of Commerce back in the day. And his daughters and I are very close. And we always talk about these parents in service, not seeing them growing up, but then following into their footsteps. But yes, so right now I got a video out because I prayed on it a lot, and didn't want to create an optical illusion. And so I prayed and asked if this was all right to talk about. And so I have a video out right now just talking about her inspiration. But it was the hardest video to get through because it's like, I'm doing really well now, but usually when I talk about it, it breaks me down. But she's just like, even in her house now, there's still a poster from when I ran in 2021.
Wow.
And that was her thing, like, vote for my son. Because she saw it, and what we spoke about earlier too. I was diagnosed with diabetes in Barbados, interestingly enough, at 4 years old. But I was in a coma for 3 months.
Wow.
And no one thought I was gonna survive. And so she told me, like, you pay your second chance forward. And that's the way you're supposed to do it. And so that's the foundation, that's the roots that I got,
Wow.
In that space. So yeah.
My brother, our listening audience, we have in our presence, if you can be in a studio with me, just the vibration here is just very high. And I'm truly honored to be having this conversation with you. We're speaking to every single citizen of the borough of Brooklyn, Kings County. And when we think Kings County, we have right across, still on the Long Island, right? Because when you really think about it, Brooklyn, Queens, Long Island, it's all on the island.
Yes.
Right? The Queens County. So we have his mother preparing our good brother with a consciousness of rulership. And I see a footprint clearly cut, the impact that she's made, and just your willingness to continue that lineage. It is our hope here at Universal Pathways, Millennium TV News, that our viewing audience will share this video. I think about places such as Nicholas, Brooklyn, right there in Fulton, very impactful in the conscious community. I personally will making sure that ones as such receive this video and share this video with those because you're active in that community. Yeah. I think about also just alternatives, because ones might be saying, you know what, you mentioned a lot from the allopathic. What about alternatives? Do you support alternatives? So I'm going to ask you to speak to that a little bit, but my point being, everyone needs to be able to hear this video, share this video, so that our good brother Cary Edwards will be the next Brooklyn Borough president. But just speak momentarily about alternatives. Do you support alternative views in the sense that you mentioned diabetes, you mentioned COVID, you mentioned so much, but sometimes the very people who you're looking to come out and vote for you, they're saying, hey, we're more into those pockets of areas where we look to now connect to herbs and different things. And by no means am I saying that the allopathic way of medicine, we're against that.
Right.
You get a broken bone, you need to be in a hospital.
Right.
You need diagnosed, you need to be in a hospital. Like you said, they had old equipment.
Right.
You actually now start to see some of the issues. So we need people and we need boots on the ground everywhere. Right. But just speak to those who will be listening that might say, well, I'm not really hearing my perspective, because we're all about really connecting back to nature. We're really all about connecting to our roots. Can you speak to that a little bit?
So, I mean, I am a living testimony of that. There is, to have diabetes for 48 years that I've had it, you can't just rely on Western medicine.
Okay.
Because it probably would have killed me quicker. Interestingly enough, when you mentioned me working in the cannabis industry, it was about restorative justice for communities that use plant medicine, right?
Okay.
It was never a thing of folks getting high on the corner. It's about understanding how deep our level to nature should be.
Okay.
And even if you look at how some Tylenol and some of these other drugs are made, they're made from plant-based realities. And so I am a full believer in the homeopathic, plant life. I could tell you some amazing stories. My son played basketball, had a stress fracture, and they wanted to do surgery on him, and it just didn't sit well with me. So one of my people from Suriname sent me some weeds, right? They just look at little weeds you see walking on the ground, and made this mixture.
Some weeds as in herbs.
But like actual dandelion,
Yeah, okay,
weeds, right?
Yeah.
Not marijuana,
exactly,
not cannabis.
Exactly.
Right. But like actual just like grass that you see on the ground.
Yes.
And put this solution together, and we soaked my son's foot for 6 weeks. And so there was a break in his foot, like it was like this if you see it. And we soaked his foot for 6 weeks. Because he's also diabetic as well. He was diagnosed when he was 12. So his sugars were higher, and they just kept pushing back his surgery. And literally the crack was like this. And he had to soak his foot in this thing.
Wow.
And this is what this thing did.
Wow.
Never had surgery. And you're like, wow. Even from the cannabis standpoint, I have seen they have these rubs, these what they call them, these salves or whatever.
Yes.
And when we were trying to convince legislators that this wasn't this gateway drug and stuff, so my company made these salves. And so I went to a senior event, and I was like, put my gloves on, sit down with me, your ankle, your foot, your back, and we started rubbing these seniors with this stuff.
Wow.
And when I tell you the healing of it, right? And so the natural medicine folks are like, every time a senior takes an ibuprofen for pain, it takes 3 years off their life because of what it does to your liver and your kidney. We rubbed this stuff on with them. It was peppermint, THC, shea butter.
Wow.
I have seniors who have spinal arthritis who are like, Mr. Edwards, I need more though. Where could I get this stuff? And so when you start to build that reality of teas for your eyes, and because like I said, I've gone through the gamut. I have foot problem, eye, kidney, hawthorn tea, dandelion tea. If you have any diabetics here, bitter melon. One of my good friends just got diagnosed. I sent him to the Asian herb shop and said, get some bitter melon and drink that stuff. It's really, a friend of mine who's he's a vegan. He says, spiritually speaking, the land is supposed to provide you with everything you need.
That is awesome.
Nuts for protein, vegetables for vitamins, sun for that, and we walk away from it, you know, for money. No less.
That is so true. Again, we don't speak to you, doctor, when it comes to anything cure, etc. Full disclosure, we're simply just speaking about personal experiences, and I'm truly honored to have in the studio today Mr. Cary Edwards. Again, he's running for Brooklyn Borough President. Last words to our audience as we prepare to close out.
When I appreciate your support and time listening, you know, if you can share this, please share this. But what the most important thing is, you have to come out and vote, right? That these local elections, every vote matters. They count every vote. And if we do not become part of the process, we become victims of the process. And for me, that's the reality, that people don't believe in voting for this person or that person, but you have to cast a vote, because the way that the federal government is moving, if you don't vote in a couple elections, they're going to make you re-register to taking away the things that people have died for. I want that vote to be for me, obviously, but really it's about getting out in the masses and having your voices heard, because if we don't, then we're just like a tree that falls in the forest, and we don't know if it makes a sound. So we need to vote. And so early voting starts June 14th. The actual election day is June 24th. My website is www.CaryEdwards.com. And if any of you guys on social media, it's Cary Edwards NYC. And just really thank you, my brother. Thank you for all of the outtakes. Thank you for all of the knowledge. Thank you for just giving me this time.
My brother, it's truly an honor to be here with you, and I will be out there supporting you as well, to really give you that support. Again, honors to Mr. Cary Edwards for being with us here today, and honors to all those who will be supporting him in this coming election. Thank you for sharing our viewers for our viewing today. But please do share this video. It's available on Facebook as well as YouTube with as much of your friends and those now who you know live in the Brooklyn area as much as possible. Thank you for our listening audience. And please, again, share this broadcast. I'm your host, Curtis Douglas Ill. And again, I'm with our good brother, Mr. Cary Edwards. Thank you, my brother.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Peace and love to you all.